Life throws chaos at us every single day: traffic jams, missed deadlines, unexpected setbacks, and the constant noise of modern life. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, to lose your footing when the world seems to spin out of control. But what if I told you there's a way to stay unshaken, no matter what life throws your way? Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. That's the essence of Stoicism, a philosophy that has guided some of history's greatest minds through turmoil and triumph alike. Today, we're diving into 21 Stoic principles that can help you stay grounded, resilient, and unshaken by anything life brings. These aren't just ancient ideas, they're practical tools for navigating the chaos of modern life. Whether you're facing a personal crisis, a professional challenge, or just the daily grind, these principles offer timeless wisdom to help you find clarity, strength, and peace. So, let's explore how you can apply these lessons to your own life and discover the power of staying unshaken. The first principle of Stoicism is also its most foundational: focus on what you can control. This idea, often called the Stoic dichotomy of control, is the cornerstone of the entire philosophy. It's about recognizing the difference between what's within your power and what isn't, and then directing your energy only toward the things you can actually influence. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it simply: some things are within our power while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, and aversion. In a word, whatever is our own doing. In other words, you can't control the weather, the traffic, or how other people behave, but you can control how you respond to those things. Your thoughts, your actions, your attitude, these are your domain. Let's bring this into the modern world. Think about a stressful day at work. Maybe your boss is demanding, deadlines are piling up, or a project isn't going as planned. You can't control your boss's mood or the workload, but you can control how you approach the situation. Do you let frustration take over, or do you focus on what you can do, prioritizing tasks, staying calm, and finding solutions? That shift in focus is the essence of Stoic wisdom. So, here's a question for you. Where in your life are you spending energy on things you can't control? Is it a relationship, a job, or even something as simple as waiting in a long line? Take a moment to reflect, because when you start focusing on what's truly within your power, you'll find a sense of calm and clarity that no external chaos can shake. This principle isn't just about surviving life's challenges, it's about thriving through them, and it all begins with understanding where your power lies. How often do you let your emotions dictate your actions? It's a question worth asking because, let's face it, we've all been there, saying something in anger we later regret, making impulsive decisions under stress, or letting frustration cloud our judgment. But what if you could step back, even in the heat of the moment, and respond with clarity instead of reacting with emotion? That's where the second Stoic principle comes in: practice cognitive detachment. The Stoics believed that emotions themselves aren't the problem, it's how we interpret and attach meaning to them that can lead us astray. Seneca, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, put it this way: we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. In other words, it's not the event itself that causes our pain, but the story we tell ourselves about it. Cognitive detachment is about creating a mental space between what happens and how you respond. It's not about suppressing your emotions or pretending they don't exist, it's about observing them without letting them control you. Let's take a modern example. Imagine you're at work and a colleague criticizes your project in front of the team. Your first instinct might be to feel defensive, maybe even angry. But instead of lashing out or spiraling into self-doubt, what if you paused and asked yourself, Is this criticism valid? What can I learn from it? By detaching from the emotional charge, you can respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. That's the power of cognitive detachment. It turns emotional triggers into opportunities for growth. So here's a challenge for you. Think about a recent situation where your emotions got the better of you. What would it have looked like if you'd practiced cognitive detachment? How might your response have changed? The goal isn't to become emotionless, it's to become emotionally intelligent. When you master this principle, you'll find that even the most challenging moments can become opportunities to strengthen your resilience and clarity. And that's a skill worth cultivating. Picture this: you're sitting at your desk, but your mind is anywhere but here. Maybe you're replaying a conversation from yesterday, wishing you'd said something different. Or perhaps you're worrying about a meeting next week, imagining all the ways it could go wrong. Sound familiar? It's easy to get caught in the trap of dwelling on the past or fretting about the future. But here's the thing: when you're stuck in that cycle, you're missing the only moment that truly exists, the present. This brings us to the third Stoic principle: embrace the present moment. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, wrote in his personal journal, Meditations, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." It's a stark reminder of how fleeting time is. The past is gone, the future is uncertain, but the present, this moment right here, is all we truly have. The Stoics believed that by anchoring ourselves in the now, we can find peace and clarity, no matter what's happening around us. So how do we actually do that? Let's start with something simple: mindful breathing. Take a moment right now to focus on your breath. Feel the air entering your lungs, the rise and fall of your chest. If your mind starts to wander, and it will gently bring it back to your breath. This isn't about emptying your mind or achieving some perfect state of calm. It's about training yourself to be present, even for just a few seconds. Now, think about your day. How often are you truly here, fully engaged in what you're doing? Are you scrolling through your phone while eating breakfast, or thinking about work while spending time with loved ones? The Stoics would argue that by constantly splitting your attention, you're robbing yourself of the richness of life. Here's a challenge: for the next hour, try to focus entirely on whatever you're doing. If you're washing dishes, notice the warmth of the water, the sound of the clinking plates. If you're talking to someone, really listen, not just to their words, but to the tone of their voice, the expressions on their face. It might feel strange at first, but that's the point. The present moment is where life happens, and the more you practice being in it, the more you'll find a sense of calm and fulfillment. So ask yourself, how often do you let the present slip away, lost in regrets or worries? What would it feel like to truly embrace the here and now? Because when you do, you'll discover that the present moment isn't just a place to exist, it's a place to thrive. And that's a lesson worth living. Now, let's talk about something we all face but rarely embrace: the things we can't change. Life is full of surprises, some wonderful, some frustrating, and some downright unfair. But here's the truth: no matter how much we plan, how hard we work, or how much we wish things were different, there will always be events outside our control. And that's where the fourth Stoic principle comes in: accept what you cannot change. The Stoics had a beautiful term for this, amor fati, which means love of fate. It's not about passively resigning yourself to whatever happens. It's about actively embracing life as it is, with all its twists and turns. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who spent much of his life as a slave, put it this way: "Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will. Then your life will flow well." In other words, instead of fighting against the current, learn to swim with it. Let's make this practical. Imagine you're at the airport, ready to board a flight for a long-awaited vacation. But then you hear those dreaded words: your flight has been cancelled. Your first reaction might be frustration, maybe even anger, but here's the question: will getting upset change the situation? Will it make the plane magically appear? Of course not. What you can do is accept the reality of the moment and focus on what's within your control, rebooking your flight, finding a place to stay, or even using the extra time to relax and read a book. This principle isn't just about big events like cancelled flights. It applies to the small, everyday frustrations too. Maybe it's a rainy day ruining your outdoor plans or a friend cancelling last minute. The Stoics would say these things aren't good or bad, they just are. It's your reaction that gives them meaning. So here's a challenge for you. Think about a recent situation where something didn't go your way. How did you respond? Did you resist it, or did you accept it with grace? Because here's the thing. When you stop fighting against what you can't change, you free up energy to focus on what you can do. And that's where real power lies. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up, it means choosing to see every situation, no matter how challenging, as an opportunity to grow. It's about finding peace in the midst of chaos and strength in the face of uncertainty. So the next time life throws you a curveball, ask yourself, can I change this? If the answer is no, then take a deep breath, embrace it, and move forward. Because sometimes the best way to stay unshaken is to simply let go. Have you ever wondered how some people seem to bounce back from setbacks with ease while others crumble under pressure? What's their secret? It's not luck or privilege, it's resilience. And this brings us to the fifth Stoic principle: cultivate inner resilience. Let's start with a story. Imagine being exiled from your home, stripped of your possessions, and forced to live in a remote, harsh environment. That's exactly what happened to the Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus. Instead of succumbing to despair, he used his exile as an opportunity to teach and inspire others. He saw his hardship not as a punishment, but as a chance to strengthen his character. Musonius once said, "Just as physical exercise strengthens the body, so does adversity strengthen the mind." And that's the essence of resilience. It's not about avoiding challenges, but about growing stronger through them. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, faced his own share of trials, wars, betrayals, and personal losses. Yet he wrote in Meditations, "The impediment to action advances action." What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, the obstacles we face aren't just barriers, they're opportunities to build resilience. Now, let's bring this into the modern world. Think about a time when you faced a major setback. Maybe you lost a job, failed at a project, or went through a difficult breakup. In those moments, it's easy to feel defeated, to question your worth or your ability to move forward. But what if, instead of seeing failure as the end, you saw it as a stepping stone? What if you asked yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I grow stronger because of it? Resilience isn't about pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's about acknowledging the pain, the struggle, and then choosing to rise above it. It's about finding meaning in the mess and using it to fuel your growth. So here's a question for you. Where in your life do you need to cultivate more resilience? Is it in your career, your relationships, or your personal goals? Take a moment to reflect, because when you start building that inner strength, you'll find that no setback can truly shake you. You'll discover that resilience isn't just about surviving, it's about thriving, no matter what life throws your way. And remember, resilience isn't something you're born with, it's something you build, one challenge at a time. So, the next time you face adversity, ask yourself, how can I turn this obstacle into an opportunity? Because when you do, you'll find that the hardest moments often lead to the greatest growth. And that's the power of cultivating inner resilience. Why would anyone choose discomfort? It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? In a world where we're constantly seeking comfort, soft beds, fast Wi-Fi, and endless conveniences, Why would anyone willingly put themselves in situations that feel uncomfortable? But here's the surprising truth: discomfort, when chosen deliberately, can be one of the most powerful tools for building resilience and mental strength. This is the heart of the sixth Stoic principle: practice voluntary discomfort. The Stoics believed that by intentionally exposing ourselves to hardship, we prepare ourselves for life's inevitable challenges. Seneca, the Roman Stoic philosopher, put it this way: set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, is this the condition that I feared? In other words, by experiencing discomfort on your own terms, you train your mind to handle adversity with calm and confidence. Let's break this down with a modern example. Think about something as simple as taking a cold shower. It's not pleasant, right? Your first instinct might be to avoid it altogether. But what if, instead of turning the knob to hot, you chose to stand under the cold water for just 30 seconds? At first, it's uncomfortable, maybe even shocking. But over time, you start to notice something. You're building mental toughness. You're teaching yourself that you can endure discomfort, and that realization carries over into other areas of your life. This principle isn't just about physical discomfort, though. It's about stepping outside your comfort zone in all areas, whether that's having a difficult conversation, tackling a challenging project, or even fasting for a day. The goal isn't to punish yourself, it's to remind yourself that you're capable of more than you think. So here's a challenge for you. What's one small way you can practice voluntary discomfort today? Could you skip your morning coffee, take the stairs instead of the elevator, or spend an hour without your phone? It doesn't have to be extreme, just enough to push you slightly out of your comfort zone. And as you do, ask yourself, what am I learning about my ability to endure? How is this small act of discomfort preparing me for bigger challenges? Because here's the thing, when you willingly face discomfort, you're not just building resilience, you're proving to yourself that you can handle whatever life throws your way. So, the next time you're tempted to avoid something uncomfortable, pause and consider, could this be an opportunity to grow? Because sometimes the path to staying unshaken begins with choosing to shake things up. And that's the power of practicing voluntary discomfort. How often do you find yourself checking your phone after posting something online, waiting for likes, comments, or approval? Or maybe you've worked tirelessly on a project only to feel deflated when someone dismisses it. It's human nature to seek validation from others. We want to feel seen, appreciated, and valued. But here's the question: what happens when that validation doesn't come? Do you let it define your worth? This brings us to the seventh Stoic principle: let go of external validation. The Stoics believed that true peace and confidence come from within, not from the opinions of others. Epictetus, who spent much of his life as a slave, put it bluntly: if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. In other words, if you're constantly seeking approval from others, you're giving them power over your happiness. But when you stop relying on external validation, you reclaim that power for yourself. Let's make this practical. Imagine you're passionate about painting. You spend hours creating a piece that feels deeply meaningful to you. But when you share it with others, the reactions are mixed. Some people love it, others don't get it, and a few might even criticize it. If you're relying on their opinions to feel good about your work, this can be crushing. But what if, instead of looking outward, you asked yourself, do I love this painting? Does it express something true to me? That shift in focus from external approval to internal satisfaction is the essence of Stoic self-sufficiency. Now think about your own life. Where are you seeking validation? Is it in your career, your relationships, or even your social media presence? Take a moment to reflect, because here's the truth. No amount of likes, compliments, or praise can fill the void if you don't believe in your own worth. So here's a challenge for you. The next time you're tempted to seek approval, pause and ask yourself, why does this matter to me? Am I doing this for others or for myself? Because when you start valuing your own opinion above anyone else's, you'll find a sense of freedom and confidence that no external validation can match. Letting go of external validation doesn't mean you stop caring about others or their perspectives. It simply means you stop letting those perspectives define you. It's about finding your worth within so that no matter what others say or think, you remain unshaken, and that's a lesson worth living. Have you ever faced a situation so challenging, so seemingly insurmountable, that it felt like the universe was conspiring against you? What if I told you that those very obstacles could be the key to your greatest triumphs? This brings us to the 8th Stoic principle: see obstacles as opportunities. Let's start with a story. Imagine being a Roman emperor leading your army into battle, only to face betrayal from within your own ranks. That's exactly what happened to Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most famous Stoic philosophers. Instead of crumbling under the weight of betrayal and war, he used these challenges as opportunities to deepen his wisdom and strengthen his resolve. In his personal journal, Meditations, he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the obstacles we face aren't just barriers, they're stepping stones to growth. The Stoic mindset is all about reframing challenges. It's not about denying the difficulty of a situation, but about seeing it through a different lens. When life throws a curveball, the Stoics ask, what can I learn from this? How can this make me stronger? It's a shift from seeing obstacles as roadblocks to viewing them as opportunities for transformation. Let's bring this into the modern world. Imagine you've just lost your job. At first, it feels like a devastating blow. Your income, your routine, your sense of security, all gone. But what if, instead of focusing on the loss, you asked yourself, what new doors could this open? Could this be the push I need to pursue a passion I've been ignoring? Many people have turned job loss into the catalyst for a new career, a business venture, or even a complete lifestyle change. The obstacle in this case becomes the opportunity. So here's a question for you. What's an obstacle you're facing right now? Is it a difficult relationship, a financial struggle, or a personal goal that feels out of reach? Take a moment to reflect, because when you start to see challenges as opportunities, you'll find that every setback has the potential to be a setup for something greater. The Stoics believed that adversity is the forge in which character is shaped. It's not about avoiding hardship, but about embracing it as a teacher. So, the next time you're faced with an obstacle, ask yourself, how can I turn this into an opportunity? Because when you do, you'll discover that the things that once seemed to hold you back can actually propel you forward. And that's the power of seeing obstacles as opportunities. What if I told you that one of the simplest practices could transform your entire outlook on life? It doesn't require money, special skills, or even a lot of time, just a shift in perspective. This brings us to the 9th Stoic principle: practice gratitude daily. The Stoics understood something profound about gratitude. It's not just a nice to have, it's a powerful tool for cultivating contentment and resilience. Seneca, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future, not to amuse ourselves with either hopes or fears, but to rest satisfied with what we have, which is sufficient." In other words, gratitude helps us focus on what we have rather than what we lack. It's a reminder that even in the midst of challenges, there's always something to appreciate. Let's make this practical. Imagine you're having a tough day, maybe work is overwhelming or you're dealing with a personal setback. It's easy to get caught up in what's going wrong. But what if, instead of dwelling on the negatives, you took a moment to list 3 things you're grateful for? It could be as simple as a warm cup of coffee, a kind word from a friend, or even the fact that you have a roof over your head. That small act of gratitude can shift your entire mindset, helping you see the good even in difficult moments. The Stoics believed that gratitude isn't just about feeling good, it's about training your mind to focus on what truly matters. Marcus Aurelius, in his personal journal, Meditations, often reflected on the things he was grateful for, from the people in his life to the lessons he learned from adversity. He wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." So here's a challenge for you: start a gratitude journal. Each day, write down 3 things you're thankful for. They don't have to be big or profound. Sometimes it's the small, everyday moments that matter most. Over time, you'll start to notice a shift in how you see the world. You'll find that even on the hardest days, there's always something to appreciate. And here's a question to reflect on. What are you grateful for right now? Take a moment to think about it. Is it your health, your relationships, or even the opportunity to learn and grow? Because when you practice gratitude, you're not just acknowledging the good in your life, you're building a foundation of resilience and joy that can carry you through anything. Gratitude isn't about ignoring life's challenges, it's about finding light even in the darkest moments. And when you make it a daily habit, you'll discover that the more you appreciate what you have, the more life gives you to appreciate. That's the power of practicing gratitude daily. How do you start your day? Do you hit snooze on your alarm, scroll through your phone, or rush out the door with a cup of coffee in hand? Or do you take a moment to ground yourself to set the tone for the hours ahead? The way you begin your morning can shape your entire day, and that's where the 10th Stoic principle comes in. Develop a morning routine. The Stoics understood the power of starting the day with intention. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, began each morning with a simple yet profound practice: reflection. In his personal journal, Meditations, he wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." For Marcus, the morning wasn't just a time to wake up. It was an opportunity to prepare his mind for the challenges and opportunities of the day ahead. So, what does a Stoic morning routine look like? It doesn't have to be elaborate or time-consuming. It's about creating a space for clarity and focus. One powerful practice is journaling. Take just 5 minutes to write down your thoughts, your goals, or even your fears. Ask yourself, what do I want to accomplish today? What challenges might I face, and how can I approach them with calm and wisdom? This simple act of reflection helps you align your actions with your values, setting the stage for a purposeful day. Another option is meditation. The Stoics didn't meditate in the way we often think of today, sitting cross-legged and chanting, but they practiced a form of mental stillness. They called it premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. It's about visualizing potential challenges and mentally preparing for them. For example, imagine a difficult conversation you might have at work. How will you stay calm and composed? By rehearsing these scenarios in your mind, you're better equipped to handle them when they arise. Let's make this practical. Imagine you're starting your day with a 10-minute routine. You wake up, sit quietly, and take a few deep breaths. Then you jot down 3 things you're grateful for and 1 intention for the day. Maybe it's to stay patient during a busy meeting or to focus on a specific task without distraction. That's it, just 10 minutes to center yourself and set the tone for the day. So here's a question for you. How do you currently start your mornings? Are you rushing through them, or are you taking the time to prepare your mind and spirit? Because here's the thing, when you begin your day with intention, you're not just reacting to life, you're shaping it. Take a moment to reflect. What's one small change you could make to your morning routine? Could you wake up 10 minutes earlier to journal, meditate, or simply sit in silence? Because when you start your day with clarity and purpose, you'll find that even the most chaotic moments feel more manageable. The Stoics believed that the morning is a sacred time, a chance to align yourself with what truly matters. So the next time you wake up, ask yourself, how can I prepare my mind for the day ahead? Because when you do, you'll discover that the way you start your morning can transform the way you live your life. And that's the power of developing a morning routine. Imagine this: you're standing in a store, surrounded by shiny new gadgets, trendy clothes, and endless options. You feel that familiar pull, the desire to have more, to own more, to be more. But here's the question: does that desire ever really go away, or does it just keep growing, leaving you chasing something that always seems just out of reach? This brings us to the 11th Stoic principle: limit your desires. The Stoics believed that true freedom doesn't come from having everything you want, it comes from wanting less. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who lived in poverty for much of his life, put it this way: wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. In other words, the more you simplify your desires, the more you free yourself from the endless cycle of craving and dissatisfaction. Let's break this down. Think about your own life for a moment. How much of your time and energy is spent chasing things you don't really need? Maybe it's the latest smartphone, a bigger house, or even the approval of others. The Stoics would argue that these desires aren't just distractions, they're chains that keep you from living a truly fulfilling life. Now, let's make this practical. Imagine you decide to downsize your possessions. You start by decluttering your closet, getting rid of clothes you haven't worn in years. Then you move on to your kitchen, your bookshelves, even your digital life, deleting apps you don't use and unsubscribing from emails that clutter your inbox. At first, it might feel uncomfortable, even scary, but as you let go of the excess, something surprising happens. You start to feel lighter, freer, more in control. This isn't just about physical possessions, though. It's about simplifying your desires in every area of life: your career, your relationships, even your goals. The Stoics believed that by focusing on what truly matters, you can find contentment in the present moment, rather than constantly chasing the next thing. So here's a question for you: what's one desire you could let go of today? Is it the need for more stuff, more status, or more approval? Take a moment to reflect. Because when you start limiting your desires, you'll discover something profound. The less you need, the more you have. And here's the real kicker: this principle isn't about depriving yourself, it's about liberating yourself. It's about realizing that true wealth isn't measured by what you own, but by what you can live without. So, the next time you feel that pull to chase something new, ask yourself, do I really need this, or am I just feeding a desire that will never truly satisfy me? Because when you start limiting your desires, you'll find that the things you once thought you needed were never the source of your happiness to begin with. And that's the freedom of needing less. Have you ever been in a situation where someone's actions frustrated or hurt you, and your first instinct was to react with anger or judgment? It's a natural response. We're wired to protect ourselves when we feel wronged. But what if, instead of reacting, you paused and asked yourself, what might this person be going through? That shift in perspective is at the heart of the 12th Stoic principle: practice empathy and compassion. Let's start with a story. Imagine being a Roman senator, respected and powerful, only to be exiled by the emperor for speaking your mind. That's exactly what happened to Seneca, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers. But instead of letting bitterness consume him, Seneca used his exile as an opportunity to reflect on human nature and the importance of understanding others. He wrote, "We are all members of one great body. Nature has made us relatives by creating us from the same source and for the same end. In other words, we're all connected, and when we practice empathy, we strengthen those connections. The Stoics believed that empathy wasn't just a nice to have, it was a fundamental part of living a virtuous life. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, often reminded himself to see things from others' perspectives. In Meditations, he wrote, "When someone does you wrong, immediately consider what good or harm they thought would come of it, for when you see that, you'll feel compassion rather than anger or hatred." It's a powerful reminder that everyone is acting based on their own experiences, fears, and desires, even when their actions hurt us. Now, let's bring this into the modern world. Think about a recent conflict you've had, maybe with a coworker, a friend, or even a stranger. It's easy to focus on how they wronged you, but what if you took a moment to consider their perspective? Maybe they're under immense stress, dealing with personal struggles, or simply misunderstood the situation. When you approach the conflict with empathy, you're more likely to find a peaceful resolution, and you might even strengthen the relationship in the process. So here's a question for you. How do you show compassion in your daily life? Is it through listening without judgment, offering help to someone in need, or simply giving someone the benefit of the doubt? Take a moment to reflect, because when you practice empathy, you're not just improving your relationships, you're cultivating a deeper understanding of humanity itself. And here's the thing, empathy doesn't mean excusing harmful behavior or ignoring your own needs. It's about finding a balance between standing your ground and understanding where others are coming from. When you do, you'll find that conflicts become less about winning and more about connecting. So, the next time you're faced with a difficult interaction, ask yourself, what might this person be going through? How can I respond with compassion instead of judgment? Because when you do, you'll discover that empathy isn't just a virtue, it's a superpower. And in a world that often feels divided, it's a power worth cultivating. What if I told you that the key to living a fuller, more meaningful life lies in something most of us avoid: thinking about death? It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? But here's the truth, reflecting on our mortality isn't morbid or depressing. In fact, it's one of the most powerful ways to clarify what truly matters. This brings us to the 13th Stoic principle, reflect on mortality. The Stoics had a practice called memento mori, which means remember you must die. It wasn't about dwelling on death in a fearful way, but about using the awareness of life's brevity as a tool to live more intentionally. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, wrote in Meditations, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do and say and think. It's a stark reminder that life is fleeting and every moment is a gift. Think about it. How often do you put off the things that matter most? Spending time with loved ones, pursuing a passion, or simply being present because you think you'll have more time later? The Stoics would argue that this is the greatest illusion of all. None of us know how much time we have, and that's precisely why we should make the most of the time we're given. So, how can we apply this principle in a practical way? Let's start with a reflective exercise. Imagine writing a letter to your future self, 1 year, 5 years, or even 10 years from now. What would you want to say? What lessons would you want to remind yourself of? What priorities would you want to make sure you're living by? This exercise isn't about predicting the future. It's about clarifying what matters most to you right now. Here's a question to ponder. If you knew your time was limited, how would you spend it differently? Would you work less and connect more? Would you take that trip you've been dreaming of, or finally start that project you've been putting off? The Stoics believed that reflecting on mortality isn't about fear, it's about freedom. It's about breaking free from the distractions and trivialities that keep us from living fully. So take a moment to reflect. What's one thing you've been putting off that you could start today? What's one relationship you could deepen, one dream you could pursue, or one habit you could let go of? Because when you live with the awareness that your time is finite, you'll find that every moment becomes more meaningful. The Stoics didn't see death as something to fear, they saw it as a teacher. It reminds us to live with purpose, to cherish the people we love, and to make the most of the time we have. So, the next time you feel stuck or overwhelmed, ask yourself, if this were my last day, how would I want to spend it? Because when you live with that question in mind, you'll find that life becomes richer, deeper, and more alive, and that's the power of reflecting on mortality. Have you ever found yourself venting about a frustrating situation, maybe a long line at the grocery store, a rude comment from a coworker, or even just the weather not cooperating with your plans? It's natural to want to express our frustrations, to let off steam, but here's the question: does complaining actually help, or does it just keep us stuck in a cycle of negativity? This brings us to the 14th Stoic principle: avoid complaining. The Stoics believed that complaining is not only a waste of energy, but it also distracts us from what truly matters: finding solutions and moving forward. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who endured slavery and exile, put it bluntly: don't explain your philosophy, embody it. In other words, instead of complaining about the world, focus on how you can respond to it with strength and wisdom. Let's break this down. Think about a time when you caught yourself complaining. Maybe it was about a traffic jam, a delayed flight, or a project at work that wasn't going as planned. In that moment, did complaining change the situation? Did it make the traffic move faster, the flight arrive sooner, or the project magically fix itself? Of course not. What it did do, though, was drain your energy and keep you focused on the problem rather than the solution. Now, let's make this practical. Imagine you're dealing with a difficult coworker who constantly criticizes your ideas. Your first instinct might be to vent to a friend or even complain about them behind their back. But what if, instead of focusing on the frustration, you asked yourself, what can I do to improve this situation? Could I have a calm, honest conversation with them? Or maybe focus on my own work and let their negativity roll off my back. That shift in mindset, from complaining to problem solving, is the essence of Stoic resilience. So here's a challenge for you. The next time you feel the urge to complain, pause and ask yourself, is this helping me? Is there a better way to handle this? Because here's the truth: complaining doesn't change the situation. It only changes how you feel about it. And when you stop wasting energy on complaints, you free yourself to focus on what you can control. Take a moment to reflect. What's one thing you've been complaining about lately? Is it a person, a situation, or even just the weather? How could you approach it differently? Because when you stop complaining and start taking action, you'll find that even the most frustrating situations can become opportunities for growth. The Stoics believed that life is full of challenges, but it's how we respond to them that defines us. So, the next time you're tempted to vent, ask yourself, what's the Stoic way to handle this? Because when you do, you'll discover that the less you complain, the more you can achieve, and that's the power of avoiding complaints. What truly brings lasting happiness? Is it the thrill of a new purchase, the rush of a social media like, or the temporary high of indulging in a guilty pleasure? Or is it something deeper, something that stays with you long after the moment has passed? This brings us to the 15th Stoic principle: seek wisdom, not pleasure. The Stoics believed that true fulfillment doesn't come from chasing fleeting pleasures, but from cultivating wisdom and understanding. Seneca, the Roman Stoic philosopher, put it this way: it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. In other words, the pursuit of pleasure is endless. It's a bottomless pit that can never truly satisfy. But wisdom is a treasure that grows the more you seek it. Let's break this down. Think about the last time you indulged in something purely for pleasure. Maybe it was binge watching a show, scrolling through social media, or splurging on something you didn't really need. How did you feel afterward? Was it lasting satisfaction or just a fleeting moment of enjoyment followed by emptiness? The Stoics would argue that these pleasures are like junk food for the soul. They might taste good in the moment, but they don't nourish you in the long run. Now, let's contrast that with the pursuit of wisdom. Imagine spending an hour reading a book that challenges your thinking, having a deep conversation with a friend, or learning a new skill. These activities might not give you the same instant rush as scrolling through your phone, but they leave you with something far more valuable: growth. They expand your mind, deepen your understanding, and give you tools to navigate life's challenges. So, here's a question for you. Where are you investing your time and energy, in fleeting pleasures or lasting wisdom? Take a moment to reflect, because when you start prioritizing wisdom over pleasure, you'll find that the rewards are far greater. Let's make this practical. Think about your daily habits. Do you spend hours on entertainment that leaves you feeling empty? Or do you carve out time for activities that enrich your mind and spirit? It's not about cutting out all enjoyment. Life is meant to be lived after all, but it's about balance. It's about choosing growth over gratification, depth over distraction. Here's a challenge for you this week. Replace one habit that brings you temporary pleasure with one that brings you lasting wisdom. Maybe it's swapping a Netflix binge for a thought-provoking documentary, or trading social media scrolling for a chapter of a book that inspires you. Notice how it feels, because when you start seeking wisdom, you'll find that the joy it brings is deeper, richer, and far more enduring. So, the next time you're tempted to chase a fleeting pleasure, ask yourself, what would the Stoics do? Because when you choose wisdom over pleasure, you're not just living for the moment, you're building a life of meaning and purpose, and that's the kind of happiness that lasts. Imagine this: you're sitting in a crowded cafe, surrounded by the hum of conversation, the clatter of dishes, and the constant ping of notifications from your phone. The noise is everywhere, outside, inside, even in your own mind. It's overwhelming, isn't it? Now, what if I told you that in the midst of all this chaos, there's a way to find peace, not by escaping the noise, but by creating stillness within yourself? This brings us to the 16th Stoic principle: practice silence and stillness. The Stoics understood something profound about the power of quiet. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, often reflected on the importance of inner stillness. In Meditations, he wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Think about that for a moment. No matter how loud the world gets, you always have access to a place of calm, your own mind. But here's the challenge: how often do you actually visit that quiet place? How often do you pause, even for a moment, to step away from the noise and just be? The Stoics believed that silence isn't just the absence of sound, it's a state of mind. It's about creating space to think, to reflect, and to reconnect with what truly matters. Let's make this practical. One of the simplest ways to practice stillness is through meditation. You don't need a special cushion, a mantra, or even a lot of time. Just sit quietly for 5 minutes, close your eyes, and focus on your breath. When your mind starts to wander, and it will gently bring it back to your breathing. That's it, no pressure, no judgment, just stillness. Now, think about your own life. When was the last time you allowed yourself to be truly still? Not scrolling, not multitasking, not even thinking, just being. If the idea feels uncomfortable, that's okay. It's a sign of how much we've become accustomed to constant noise and distraction. But here's the thing: when you make space for silence, you give yourself the gift of clarity. You create room to hear your own thoughts, to process your emotions, and to reconnect with your values. So, here's a question for you. What's one moment in your day where you could carve out a few minutes of stillness? Could it be in the morning before the chaos begins, during a lunch break, or even just before bed? Take a moment to reflect, because when you start practicing silence, you'll find that the noise of the world doesn't have to dictate your inner state. The Stoics believed that stillness is a superpower. It's not about escaping life's challenges, it's about facing them with a calm and centered mind. So, the next time you feel overwhelmed by the noise, ask yourself, how can I create a moment of stillness right now? Because when you do, you'll discover that the quietest moments often hold the loudest truths, and that's the power of practicing silence and stillness. Have you ever noticed how the people around you shape your thoughts, your habits, even your mood? It's subtle, but it's powerful. The Stoics understood this better than anyone, which brings us to the 17th principle: be mindful of your circle. Let's start with a story. Imagine you're a young student in ancient Rome, eager to learn the ways of Stoicism. You approach Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, and ask him how to live a virtuous life. His response: the key is not just in what you learn, but in who you surround yourself with. He believed that the people you spend time with have a profound influence on your character, for better or worse. Epictetus put it bluntly: you become like the people you spend the most time with. Choose your companions wisely. It's a simple idea, but it's deeply true. Think about it. If you spend time with people who gossip, complain, or act selfishly, those habits can start to rub off on you. But if you surround yourself with people who are kind, disciplined, and virtuous, their qualities can inspire you to be your best self. Now, let's bring this into the modern world. Imagine you're trying to live a healthier lifestyle, but your friends constantly pressure you to skip the gym and join them for fast food. Or maybe you're working on a big project, but your coworkers are negative and unmotivated, dragging you down with their pessimism. The Stoics would say, it's not enough to focus on your own growth, you also need to be mindful of the energy you allow into your life. So here's a question for you. Who are the people you spend the most time with? Are they lifting you up, encouraging you to grow, and reflecting the values you want to embody? Or are they holding you back, whether through negativity, distraction, or toxic behavior? Take a moment to reflect, because when you start to evaluate your circle, you might realize that some relationships are worth nurturing and others are worth letting go. This doesn't mean cutting people out of your life without care or compassion. It's about being intentional. It's about recognizing that your time and energy are precious and choosing to invest them in relationships that help you become the person you want to be. So here's a challenge for you. Think about one person in your life who inspires you to be better. What qualities do they have that you admire? How can you spend more time with them? And on the flip side, is there someone in your circle who drains your energy or pulls you away from your goals? What steps could you take to create healthier boundaries? The Stoics believed that the company you keep is a reflection of your values. So, the next time you're choosing who to spend time with, ask yourself, does this person help me grow or do they hold me back? Because when you surround yourself with virtuous, uplifting people, you'll find that their influence can be one of the most powerful tools for living a meaningful life. And that's the power of being mindful of your circle. What does it mean to truly live with integrity? Is it just about telling the truth, or is it something deeper? Something that shapes every decision, every action, and every moment of your life? This brings us to the 18th Stoic principle, act with integrity. The Stoics believed that integrity wasn't just a nice to have, it was the foundation of a virtuous life. Seneca, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, put it this way: a good character is the only guarantee of everlasting, carefree happiness. In other words, when you live in alignment with your values, you create a sense of inner peace that no external circumstance can shake. But what does that look like in practice? Let's break it down. Integrity isn't just about being honest when it's easy. It's about staying true to your principles even when it's hard. It's about doing the right thing, not because anyone is watching, but because it's who you are. Seneca wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." In other words, acting with integrity often requires courage, especially when the stakes are high. Now let's bring this into the modern world. Imagine you're at work and you notice a colleague taking credit for someone else's idea. It's a small thing maybe, but it feels wrong. Do you stay silent or do you speak up? Acting with integrity means choosing the harder path, standing up for what's right, even if it's uncomfortable. It's about aligning your actions with your values, no matter the cost. So, here's a question for you. Where in your life are you being tested to act with integrity? Is it in your relationships, your career, or even the small, everyday choices you make? Take a moment to reflect, because when you start living with integrity, you'll find that it's not just about doing the right thing, it's about becoming the kind of person who can't do anything else. The Stoics believed that integrity is the ultimate measure of character. It's not about perfection, it's about consistency. It's about showing up as your best self, even when no one is watching. So, the next time you're faced with a difficult decision, ask yourself, what would the person I want to be do in this situation? Because when you act with integrity, you're not just living a good life, you're building a legacy of virtue. And that's a legacy worth leaving. Have you ever been so angry that you felt like you were about to explode? Maybe it was a rude comment from a stranger, a frustrating argument with a loved one, or even just spilling coffee on your favorite shirt. In that moment, anger can feel all-consuming, like a fire that's impossible to put out. But here's the question, does that anger actually help you, or does it just leave you feeling worse? This brings us to the 19th Stoic principle, let go of anger. The Stoics saw anger as one of the most destructive emotions, a force that clouds judgment, damages relationships, and ultimately harms the person holding onto it. Seneca, the Roman Stoic philosopher, called anger a brief madness. He wrote, "No plague has cost the human race more dear than anger." Think about that for a moment. Anger doesn't just hurt others, it eats away at you. But here's the thing, the Stoics didn't just criticize anger, they offered a way to overcome it. Seneca believed that mastering your emotions starts with understanding them. He wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." In other words, when you feel that surge of anger rising, don't act on it immediately. Pause, breathe. Give yourself time to cool down before responding. Let's make this practical. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, running late for an important meeting. The car in front of you cuts you off, and your first instinct is to honk, yell, or even tailgate them out of frustration. But what if, instead of reacting, you took a deep breath and counted to 10? That small pause can be the difference between escalating the situation and letting it go. It's not about suppressing your emotions, it's about choosing how to respond to them. So here's a question for you. How do you handle anger? Do you let it take control, or do you find ways to step back and regain your composure? Take a moment to reflect. Because when you start to let go of anger, you'll find that it's not just about avoiding conflict, it's about reclaiming your peace. The Stoics believed that anger is a choice. It's not something that happens to you, it's something you allow. And when you choose to let it go, you're not just avoiding a moment of madness, you're choosing clarity, calm, and control. So the next time you feel that familiar heat rising, ask yourself, is this anger helping me, or is it just holding me back? Because when you let go of anger, you'll find that the fire doesn't just burn out, it leaves room for something far more powerful, peace. And that's the power of mastering your emotions. What truly matters in life? It's a question we all ask ourselves at some point, but how often do we actually stop to answer it? The truth is, it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day grind, the deadlines, the errands, the endless to-do lists. But when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, what do you see? What's really important? This brings us to the 20th Stoic principle: focus on the big picture. The Stoics believed that one of the keys to living a meaningful life is to regularly step back and gain perspective. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, often reminded himself of this in his personal journal, Meditations. He wrote, "Keep before your eyes the vastness of time and the smallness of your place in it." Think about that for a moment. In the grand scheme of things, how much do the petty concerns that consume us really matter? The argument with a coworker, the traffic jam, the spilled coffee. These things feel huge in the moment, but when you step back, they're just blips on the radar of your life. So how do we apply this principle in a practical way? Let's start with an example. Imagine you're working late again, trying to meet a deadline. Your family is waiting for you at home, but you tell yourself, just one more hour. The Stoics would ask, is this deadline really more important than the time you're sacrificing with your loved ones? When you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, what's going to matter more in the long run, the project you finished on time or the memories you could have made with your family? This isn't about dismissing your responsibilities or ignoring the demands of modern life. It's about balance. It's about recognizing that while the small stuff matters, it shouldn't overshadow what truly counts. The Stoics called this practice taking the view from above. It's about imagining yourself looking down on your life from a great height, seeing the full scope of your existence and asking, what's really important here? So here's a question for you. What's one thing in your life that feels overwhelming right now? Is it a work project, a conflict with a friend, or even just the stress of daily responsibility? Now zoom out. Imagine looking at your life from above. Does that thing still feel as big as it did before? Or does it shrink in comparison to the things that truly matter? Your relationships, your health, your sense of purpose. Take a moment to reflect. What's your big picture? What are the things that will truly matter to you in the long run? Because when you start focusing on the bigger picture, you'll find that the small stuff doesn't have to control you. You'll see that life is about more than just surviving the chaos. It's about thriving in what truly matters. The Stoics believe that perspective is power. So the next time you feel overwhelmed by the details, ask yourself, what's the big picture here? Because when you do, you'll find that the things that truly matter are often closer than you think. And that's the power of focusing on the big picture. Imagine this: you're sitting in a dimly lit room surrounded by screens, your phone, your laptop, maybe even a TV playing in the background. Notifications buzz, emails pile up, and the world outside feels like a distant memory. Sound familiar? It's easy to get caught in this cycle, to feel disconnected from the natural rhythms of life. But what if I told you that reconnecting with nature could be the key to finding peace and clarity in a chaotic world? This brings us to the 21st and final Stoic principle: live in harmony with nature. The Stoics believed that true happiness comes from aligning ourselves with the natural order of the world. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who spent much of his life in exile, put it this way: happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle: some things are within our control and some things are not. Nature, he argued, operates in harmony with itself. Trees grow, rivers flow, seasons change, all without resistance or complaint. And when we learn to live in harmony with nature, we too can find that same sense of peace. But what does that mean in practice? It's about more than just spending time outdoors, though that's a great place to start. It's about recognizing that we are part of something larger, something timeless. It's about simplifying our lives, letting go of what we can't control, and embracing the natural flow of existence. Seneca, another great Stoic thinker, wrote, "Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished." In other words, when we stop fighting against the current and start flowing with it, we find a deeper sense of ease and fulfillment. So, how can we apply this principle in our modern, fast-paced lives? Let's start with something simple: spending time in nature. Whether it's a walk in the park, a hike in the woods, or even just sitting under a tree, these moments of connection can be incredibly grounding. Notice the way the wind feels on your skin, the sound of birdsong, the way sunlight filters through the leaves. These small acts of mindfulness can help you reconnect with the natural world and with yourself. Here's a challenge for you. This week, carve out just 15 minutes to spend in nature. Leave your phone behind, or at least put it on silent. Let yourself be fully present in the moment. And as you do, ask yourself, how does this make me feel? What can I learn from the simplicity and beauty of the natural world? The Stoics believed that living in harmony with nature isn't just about the environment, it's about aligning your life with the principles of balance, simplicity, and acceptance. It's about recognizing that, just like the trees and the rivers, you are part of a greater whole. And when you embrace that connection, you'll find a sense of peace that no amount of screen time can provide. So, the next time you feel overwhelmed by the noise of modern life, ask yourself, how can I reconnect with nature today? Because when you do, you'll discover that the simplest moments often hold the deepest truths. And that's the power of living in harmony with nature. So, there you have it, 21 Stoic principles to help you stay unshaken by anything life throws your way. From focusing on what you can control to practicing gratitude, embracing the present moment, and living in harmony with nature, these timeless lessons offer a roadmap for resilience, clarity, and inner peace. But here's the thing: Stoicism isn't just a philosophy for ancient times, it's a practical toolkit for modern life. Whether you're navigating a personal crisis, a professional challenge, or just the daily grind, these principles can help you find strength and stability in the chaos. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." That's the heart of Stoicism. It's not about controlling the world around you, it's about mastering your response to it. And when you do, you'll discover that no matter what happens, you have the power to stay unshaken. So, here's a question for you. Which of these principles resonates with you the most? Is it the idea of focusing on what you can control, or perhaps the practice of embracing the present moment? Take a moment to reflect, because the real power of Stoicism lies in applying these lessons to your own life. Start small. Maybe it's practicing gratitude each morning, or taking a few minutes to meditate and find stillness. Over time, these small steps can lead to profound changes. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. If you found value in this video, consider sharing it with someone who might need it too. And if you're not already subscribed, hit that button and join our community. Together, we can explore more timeless wisdom and practical tools to help us live better, more meaningful lives. So, what's your next step? How will you start applying these principles today? Because when you do, you'll find that the power to stay unshaken has been within you all along. And that's the beauty of Stoicism. It's not just a philosophy, it's a way of life. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.